Hi, I'm Amy Rompo, host of Under the Oaks. This is a space for meaningful stories, the kind that leave a lasting impression and shape the way we see the world.
And I'm Jenny Harrison. Here we sit down with people whose lives and experiences have made a genuine impact and whose stories deserve to be shared.
We believe it takes courage to tell your story, and that when it is shared, it can bring connection, encouragement, and hope.
So wherever you're listening from, we're glad you're here. Come sit with us under the oaks where stories take root.
Today on Under the Oaks, we're talking with Derek Welborn. He is the owner and founder of Saints Western, a heritage board brand that started with hats and now is just spreading like wildfire. And we're so excited to hear his story, more about his mission behind it, and what's coming.
Yes.
So welcome, Derek.
Thanks for coming
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time, and I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I stumbled in Derek's booth at Round Top when I went with my girlfriends, and I walked in, and I had been to, like, at this point, this was like day 2 or 3 on shopping. Not a huge shopper, my friends, huge shoppers. And I walked into your booth and I was like, wait, I know this brand. I actually know this brand. I'm like, how do I know this brand? And I think it was because your whole family was there, right?
Probably. I was by myself most of the time,
Okay.
but
Jill was
on
definitely
the
there.
weekends,
And your
the
girls.
weekends, my wife, and I think she brought my kids up that weekend that you were there.
Yeah.
And my daughter's birthday was that week. And so my whole family, like my sister, my parents, they all came in and they wanted to see the space. So they came, so they were probably there as well.
Yes, it was a very cool moment because I said, oh, I remember your name. I'm like, I remember you've done like a collab or something online with Brandon Lake. We're from Seacoast. And I think it was one of your relatives, but they were like, hey, the owner's over there. You need to go over there and talk to him. And after I had your wife help me like make my hat look way cooler, I came over to you and I was making him talk to me the whole time. And his like adorable, sweet wife kept like lining hats up on the table and like they were backing up.
Like, okay,
And
Jenny.
I kept being like, one more second. I promise I'll let him get back to work.
That's part of Round Top. Round Top's like crazy insane, and you get used to working fast and moving from one hat to the
And
next.
people coming
but I love to
in.
share my story, and it's cool when you can connect with people through that vehicle, through a hat. But yeah, Round Top is insane. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of walking, a lot of shopping, but it's a lot of fun.
Yes.
Gosh, and so you just touched on something. So people are coming, it's busy. You get to share your stories, talk with them. And it sounds like your brand was built a lot on stories. But also you were a pastor or are a pastor, correct?
Yeah, so was in full-time ministry for 15 years. I was a student pastor for a good chunk of that. Recently was a campus pastor of a church in downtown Austin. So we were right there on 2nd Street. I had served as the student pastor for 4 years at our main campus. Randy Phillips from Phillips, Craig and Dean. I don't know if you remember that 90s. They were a 90s Christian music group, early 2000s. I always connect them to like the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. They were like the NSYNC
Of
of
the
Christian
ministry.
music back in the day. Randy Phillips is our lead pastor, and we have like 8 campuses in Austin. Served as a student pastor for 4 years at our main campus, and then transitioned kind of during COVID to our downtown location, which that's where I felt called to. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It met in a bar right there on 2nd Street.
So
It's
cool.
if you've heard of Austin City Limits, it was one of the Austin City Limits secondary venues downstairs. And it had these huge garage doors that opened up to the city. And so every Sunday morning, worship music's just flooding the streets, and people would come with their dogs. We had a family that would bring a pig on a wagon.
Gosh.
It was if you could think Austin, if you've any context to Austin, it was a very Austin-y church. People would be running the trails and then run
Yeah.
to church. And we got to really see some transformation happen for people that were just walking by and would hear the music stop. Like one of my best friends to this day was a guy that was extremely lost and just meandered into the church, met him, and his life, marriage, family completely restored. And it was just because he was walking by. And so a lot of cool stories. We used to do baptisms right there on the street. And so people were, headed to brunch and we're baptizing people. So it was a really cool
Yeah.
place to do church, and, meet people that would probably not step foot into a church, like, traditional church,
Yeah.
um, found their way to our church and found their lives changed. So it was an amazing opportunity to serve our pastor's vision in that location. So did that for 4 years. And then um, the hat thing kind of started happening. So in 2021, I developed alopecia. If you're familiar with alopecia is an autoimmune disease where your body kind of attacks your hair follicles and your hair just falls out
Mhm.
in clumps. And out of nowhere, 36 years of age, my hair just started falling out. And I had thick hair to begin with,
Mhm.
so never thought I would go bald. Like I was never that guy. It's like, I'm afraid I'm going to be bald, that kind of thing. But
It was
overnight,
just quick.
just
Yeah.
Mm.
just quick. And it was a hard, thing to navigate as a pastor.
Yeah.
You're sitting there encouraging people, giving people hope,
Mhm.
faith, uh, and on the outside trying to look like I had it together, but internally just extremely, embarrassed, struggling with my identity, insecure, and just went through a year of that, of just like identity crisis, almost
Wow.
wrestling with like God. Like I grew up Pentecostal, so I'm like, I've seen some crazy stuff, and I'm like, God, I know you can heal me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why you're not healing me. I believe, I
Mhm.
know you can heal. I've seen it. And just praying for healing. And it didn't come in the way that I thought it was going to come. I even, like my daughter, she was like 3 at the time. She would put her hands on my head every night and pray that daddy's hair would come
Mhm.
back, all of it, in the name of Jesus. And, even I was like, childlike faith. I'm like, speak it over me,
Yeah.
and the story now looking back, that I know we'll get into, I just see the hand of God weave this beautiful story through the
Yeah.
whole thing. And but it was a trying time.
Yeah.
I love how you share how you guys were pastoring. That is just so cool to think, you know, uh, how we are called as church, like where we minister in the workplace.
Mm.
And oftentimes people are like, it just happens in the church, or it just happens in those four walls, or it just happens at like this, like you go to the church with a steeple, and it's like you said, people are being saved just hearing the worship music as they're walking by, or they're, like, what's happening? Why are they doing it differently? Like, you're planting so many seeds in that time. So
Yeah.
I love hearing that story.
Well, and it seems like it's also trickled into what you're doing now,
Yeah.
because I was listening to another podcast you were on, and you were talking about how many people that you pray over that just visit your booth at Round Top, and how you've kind of had a chance to connect with people, non-believers, believers there. So it's cool how, even though maybe you're not serving in the church anymore, you're definitely still ministering out in the wild.
Oh, for sure. Like it's definitely a ministry, and that's what one of the things that really connected me to doing like Round Top and things like that. And so um, basically, a year went by, and I started getting into hats because I was like bald, literally
Hmm.
just patches of hair. And it was to the point where, like, the only time I wouldn't wear a hat was, like, if I was running or mowing the grass, and even in that, like, if my neighbors were coming outside, I would just kinda hide behind the house and wait till they went back inside and finished cutting the grass. It was just, it's kinda one of those things where you think everybody's looking at you, but nobody's really
Yeah.
looking at
Hmm.
you. But I felt just, like, super insecure. And so um, started getting into hats, and of course, how the algorithm works, like, it just started feeding me all these, like, hat companies. And, I started looking at hats more, and I wanted more custom hats, but custom hats are crazy expensive, and I can't afford that on a pastor's budget. And so, I bought a Stetson hat, wore it for a year, and then one day was just like, basically deconstructed it and was just like, I wonder if I could learn how to make these.
Mm.
And I just watched YouTube videos and just would piece together the steps. And for Father's Day, a year later, I asked my wife, I was like, hey, for Father's Day, can I buy a raw felt, a block? So you have to have a block for every size hat, like for every size head. But I was just like, can I buy like my size block, a felt, and a sweatband and just see if I can make a hat? And she's like, sure. So I found a wholesaler, bought the stuff, didn't even really know what I was buying, and made my first hat. I actually have it here, but
Oh,
Oh.
and it's funny, I can't even wear it now because I was
you have
bald at the
so much
time,
hair
and now
So
I
now
now.
have
you
like
have hair.
hair, so much hair. Yeah, so like my first hat, like
Wow.
I was just shocked that like I was able to
No
even
Yeah.
kidding.
make some, because I didn't think that. I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot, but it's probably not gonna turn out, like my sewing's horrible and all of that. But yeah, I made my first hat, and funny enough, my wife and I have the same size head, so I would make a hat. She could wear it, I could
Oh,
wear it
that's cool.
for like birthdays, or Christmas. My parents would be like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Just buy me a felt, and I'll make me a hat."
Mm.
And so that's kind of how it started, just making me hats
Yeah.
and wearing them, and then people like commenting on them. And one Sunday, I was at church. I was talking to this individual that had just started coming. He's from India. He's a tech guy, and he hadn't been to our church long. And I was just talking to him, and someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, did you make that hat?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Wait, you made that hat?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, do you sell them?" And I was like, "No, I just make me hats. I only have one block." And he was like, "When's your birthday?" It was like November. My birthday's in June. I was like, "June." He's like, "Well, I'm going to buy them for you for Thanksgiving." And I'm like, "No, I want to buy you a full set of blocks." And I'm like, "No, like, thank you. I appreciate it." He's
Mm.
like, "Paul was a tent maker. You're a hat maker, and
Whoa.
you need to sell these." And I kept turning him down, and then finally, he texted me that night, and he's like, "If you don't tell me where to buy these blocks, I'm going to buy something, and it may not be what you need or what you want. I want to get you what you want." And couple months later, I had a full set of blocks show up on my doorstep, and my community, my church community, basically rallied around me, and they were like, "We want to support you." So my best friend, who I mentioned, found the church by walking on the street. In his home, he threw a launch party, and a guy in my small group did my website, and it was just like kind of scrappy, but it was just a community
Gosh.
of people coming together to like see this dream fulfilled. And um, we threw a launch party, sold like 20 something hats. And it's funny, I go back and the people that bought some of my earlier hats, I'm like, hey, can I redo those or can I fix those?
They're like,
But it's
"No,
just a
this
testament of
is
just a community of people to coming alongside and just seeing something in me and pushing me forward.
wow."
And that's kind of what Saints, like I actually, like in the first hat I made, I stamped Saints in it, and it was really
Mm.
before Saints Western was even kind of a thought, but I stamped that in there, and yeah, this community kind of pushed it forward. So
Gosh, that's so cool. I know when I was standing there talking to you at your booth too, and we had made the branding connection, you had said when you started making hats, you had told yourself, like, I'm gonna make Brandon Lake a hat. And now you not only have a friendship
yes,
with him and a connection with him, but many others.
yeah, so yeah, it was wild. It was like 2021 is kind of when Brandon was like really kind of starting to take off, and I remember sitting on my couch and saying, one day I want to make Brandon Lake a hat. Like that was my goal. And yeah, through a connection, David Leonard, who he was a part of All Sons and
Mhm.
Daughters. He wrote the song "Greater You, Lord," a lot of great
Mhm.
tunes. He's an amazing man. But I met him through a mutual friend and made him a hat, and he was hanging out with Brandon. And he called me, FaceTime me at like on a Saturday morning at like 8:30 in the morning. David did, and I'm like, why is he FaceTiming me so early? And he's like, "Bro," and I hadn't even shared this with him, but he was like, "Bro, you sitting down?" I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, "Was hanging out with Brandon last night, he saw my hat. He wants you to make him a hat. And I was like, bro, that was like my goal. And he's like, hey, God did that in 3 months. You better start dreaming bigger.
Wow.
And that kind of started a friendship with him. And I know we'll get into that as well. But to get to that point, like how I got to Round Top, there was another individual that I definitely want to highlight. So Clint Huff, I met him through one of my buddies. His name's Jesse Reeves. He's a songwriter. He
Mm.
wrote the song "How Great Is Our God," like
Mhm.
all the good tunes. Like he was a part of Chris Tomlin's band for 17 years, and just an amazing guy, pastor here in Austin, songwriter. And I had met him, and we became friends. And he had this guy named Clint that he was like, "You need to talk to because he's done a lot of stuff in Mexico. He's worked for some hat companies. He might can get you some better deals on felts." As I was getting started, and so he introduced me to Clint, and Clint was like, "Hey, I've got this booth out in Round Top, Texas." And I had heard of Round Top Antique Market before, but hadn't really hadn't been or anything. And but I'd heard about it because of Fixer Upper and some of these shows. It's a
Mhm.
huge antique,
Yeah.
Sure.
market,
Sure.
vintage. And so I met him for lunch and told him my story. He told me his. It was a 4-hour lunch because both of us give a lot of details. And but yeah, he was just like, "Hey, man, like I think you're talented." Jesse showed me the hat that you made him. Like, why don't you come into my booth, set up? I'll give you 100% of what you sell. I'll give you a percentage of what we do, and this could be a good way to like help you and your family. And honestly, hats was kind of when I started doing it, it was like nice to have a little bit of extra income. Our kids are starting to get into dance
Sure.
and all this other stuff, and Austin's expensive. And so I was like, wow, it's an opportunity uh, to make a little extra money. So I talked to our pastors, leaders. I was like, hey, can I take off, just the, use my PTO and just throw it into this show? And so they were like, yeah. I mean, they saw my journey from losing my hair, and
Yeah.
at that point was still bald. Like I would just shave my head. And so showed up to that first show. He gave me money to design the space, do the hat bar type thing, and I sold like 10 of my hats, which I was shocked, like,
Yeah.
wow, people, you know, saw value enough to
Yes, and
spend their
believed in
money on
you.
something that I made. And the show went great. And after that first show, he was like, "Hey, I want you and Jill to pray about this. And if y'all want to continue to do this, like, I want to help you."
Yeah.
So we prayed about it. And we were just like, yeah, it's a great opportunity. And so after that show, Clint bought me like $15,000 worth of hat equipment
Wow.
because I didn't really have like proper equipment. I kind of just made my own kind of tools
Yeah.
and just figured it out. But he bought me like the conformer, where it makes a conformer is like a tool that is used to make a custom hat like fit properly. For like if I made you a hat, it would fit you, and because of your head shape and everything, and steamers, all the things. And he bought me that, and then he's like, "You know what goes well with hats?" And he's like, "Boots." And I know where every boot's made because he lived in Mexico for 20 plus years, and every boot comes out of Leon, Mexico, which is like the leather capital. And so he was like, "I want to fly you to Mexico. I want to go you to visit this hat factory that's there. And then let's see if we can get into some
Wow.
boots." And so I had a tip on a factory, and we fly to Mexico, not having a meeting scheduled or anything. And while we were there for a week. We were like calling this factory, like, "Hey, can you meet with us?" And every day it was like, "Oh, the person you need to talk to is not here." And so we kind of hung up our hat and said, like, "It's probably not going to work. We tried, you know, God
Yeah.
didn't open this door." It was like our last day we were there. We get a call back, and it's like, "Hey, if you could be here at noon, we'll meet with you." And so we go in. It's 100-year-old factory. Same family runs it. And we basically told our stories. Like, I'm a no name brand. Like, we want to do a small batch of boots, and will you work with us? And they took a chance on us. It was like, yeah, we'll work with you. And so I started designing boots. And then that next show, we came out with a line of boots, and that's starting to grow. And yes, it was wild. Clint, then as we get back, he stayed with me. Like, he wasn't an investor and a partner, like, contractually. He was just somebody that saw value in me and believed
Wow.
in me and just wanted to elevate me. And this guy Clint, I mean, he supported a group of indigenous persecuted Mayan women for 20 years. They would make embroidered wedding dresses. He would take them to Round Top, sell them. 100% of the money would go back to these families. He did the same thing in a Mexican prison. These Mexican prisoners would make these beautiful tables and furniture, and they were selling them for, like, 200 or $20 on the street in Mexico. He would take them to Round Top, sell them for like 2,000, and then come back and pay these prisoners, because, like, it wasn't like one of these maximum security prisons. It was one of these prisoners where, it was like petty crime. And basically in Mexico, if, like, the breadwinner is incarcerated, like, the whole family's incarcerated. And so
Mm.
it was a way for him to, like, support this group of men.
Wow.
And did that for like 7 years while he was there. So he's missional in mind. And
Yeah.
he saw that, I'm a pastor, young pastor in Austin, family, and he's like, "This is my new mission. I want to help you." And he just poured a lot of time, resources, and energy into me, and basically supported me the first 4 shows, and then the last 2 shows, he was like, "All right, I've taught you Round Top. It's your turn to soar. It's yours now." And so I basically took over his whole booth space. Each show got more and more of my stuff, and now it's 100% like my inventory, my stuff. And he just believed in me, and he's like, "I'm moving to Panama." He moved to Panama and just
Gosh.
started a school, and it's got 10 first graders, him and his wife,
Can't
and
stop. Won't
they're
stop.
teaching them English, Bible.
Gosh.
Yeah,
I
yes,
feel
it's
like in the
crazy.
body of and it's like in the body of Christ, though, it's beautiful to see how we all come together and work together. So, like, he saw potential in you, so he, like, invested in you for the greater good of the kingdom, because he was like, "This guy is creative.
Yeah.
He's gonna make these beautiful things, and it's gonna impact generations, and it's gonna be such a big thing." Um, I just heard a message on Elijah and Elisha, but basically passing the mantle on, and just how, he invested into you, in this space in Round Top, and it's just cool to hear the story, and then now he's off
I
doing more.
know. I
Yeah,
know.
and that was the like going back to, like, full-time ministry and being in a space like this. um, Clint saw this early on in me. After the first show, he's like, "Bro, I saw you light up." He's like,
Mm,
You're bringing your creativity and then your people, side, and you're putting them together, and it's really cool to see, like, God work in those moments
mhm,
of, like, being in our booth or being a part of a fashion show and meeting people that probably wouldn't go to church, but they're asking me, "Oh, do you have a hat store in Austin?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, no, I'm a pastor." And they're like, "Wait, what?" And get to tell them my story and get to minister to people that way. And um, yeah, it's amazing how many times, like, I've been able to just encourage people, pray with people in my booth, believers and non-believers, as the Holy Spirit leads. But um, I love I I'm starting to love it more of just that retail, because it's like anybody and everybody can step foot into your place. And that's what I loved about our church, it was that it was open. It wasn't
mhm,
intimidating,
mhm.
and I think there's something beautiful about, like,
Come as you are, almost,
cre
yeah.
you come as you are,
Mhm.
but, like, there's no
Mhm.
expectation. But, even with the name Saints Western, like, we have a sign that says, "The best sermons are lived, not
Oof.
preach," and you could see light bulb moments of people piecing things together,
Yeah.
Mhm.
um, as they're in our booth, because it is a very Western, aesthetic looking, vintage
It's
Western
beautiful.
looking space, but people connecting dots
Mhm.
on things, and then it opens the door for a
Yeah, I was
conversation.
gonna say one of the another thing that we talked about that, because I was there for a while. My friends were long gone, and I was like, checking in a little bit, found my booth. But you had said, and this sat with me, that we had talked about how you had been diagnosed with alopecia, and you told me at one point you were also making hats for kids with alopecia and to help them just kind of get comfortable in their own skin again. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. Like God's opened up really cool doors to be able to minister to people, and um, it's it hasn't been anything that we sought out. I think there's something there where eventually, like this is like we always say, like we want to be profitable for purpose so that we can be
Sure.
generous. It's a business at the end of the day. Like we want to make money so that we can bless people and minister to people. And I had a mom hit me up on Instagram, and I guess she read my story, and her daughter was 8 years old, and had alopecia, and pretty bad case. And of course, like, I know how I felt as a 36-year-old man.
Mm.
I can't imagine like an 8-year-old. I have a 9-year-old. And so knowing our culture and how much
Mhm.
pressure there is to look a certain way, or, whatever, um, seeing this girl, like we FaceTimed with her and her mom, and she got to meet my wife and my daughter, and I just got to, like, through FaceTime, just encourage her.
Yeah.
And she I told her I was gonna make her a hat, and so I made it a little bit bigger so that she could, like, grow into it. But then also I told her, like, I wrote her a note and was just like, "One day you're gonna grow out of this hat, but I want you to ever give it away. Like, I want this to be a hat, a visual representation that God sees you, that I saw you, and kinda know what you're walking through, and it's just a part of your story."
Sure.
And, so that was a pretty cool moment just to give back. And then recently, I live in Dripping Springs, like, right outside of Austin, and there was a mom and daughter, like, that drove past my truck, and it's got Saints Western on it, and, they were like, "That looks like a cool brand, look that up," and her daughter, like, Googled it and read my story. She's a 14-year-old singer-songwriter, um, walking through alopecia. And they were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, so they hit me up. They came to my studio space, and I just got to, like, encourage her because she's in the thick of it right now, getting bullied online for wearing wigs, and she just shaved her head for the first time
Wow.
because it got to the point where, you know, y-
Yeah.
it's funny. Like, you go through these stages, you're trying to hold on what's being lost,
Yeah.
and it's almost this empowering moment. Like, the most empowering moment was, like, when you shave your head, because it's like, "Okay,
Surrender.
I'm letting it not have a hold of me."
Sure.
You're, like, regaining the narrative of it.
Mhm.
And when I did it, when I shaved my head, I told God, I was like, "Okay, God, like, you haven't healed me in the way that I thought you were gonna heal me." And I was like, "Even if you heal me, and even if you don't, like, I know that this is a part of my story, and I'll continue to praise you." And it was like I shaved my head, and it was a pretty emotional moment. And same thing for her when she shaved her head. She videoed it, and it was the first time she kinda really started, like, telling her story on her social media. But, I'm in the process of, like, making her a hat, or I've just finished it,
Wow.
and, gonna give that to her next week, and, like, tell her story. Like, I wanna use, like, Saints as a platform to not just tell my story, but to tell other people's story as well,
Mhm.
because we all go through trials, and we
Mhm.
all go through stuff, and it's like, it's who we're becoming, and, it's a part of it. And so it's been cool to be able to, like, give back through that, and encourage people, because, again, knowing how they feel internally. And
Yeah. I
yeah.
think people, I think that there's a real misconception or just unawareness of, people going through treatment that lose their hair, how hard that is because of how much of your hair does feel like a part of you. And to lose something like that is really, really challenging. And a lot of people going through treatment or going through an autoimmune disease just need to feel heard in that moment and in that space. Because hair seems like a trivial thing, but it's so not. And I was wondering, Derek, like, do you feel like God used alopecia to kind of strip back, pull back the curtain, and help you really find your true identity?
Oh, for sure. Like, I think, I've always loved, like, style, fashion, like, that kind of stuff. And I think losing my hair was a big piece of identity, and what I like, just the outward appearance, you know, uh,
Mhm.
man looks at the outward appearance, God looks at our heart.
Mhm.
And I think there was a shedding that I needed to do, literally and figuratively, like of that to get to where I'm at now. And I don't know if I would have gotten there,
Mhm.
to be honest, if this hadn't happened. Um, and I think, yeah, God definitely used it. And yeah, it was a painful but beautiful journey. The
Mhm.
dichotomy between the two of like it was a beautiful, painful experience, but
Mm.
I think it was needed.
Yeah, and I know your daughter, she laid hands on you and on your head and prayed for healing, and the healing didn't look like necessarily you thought it would, but what did it look like?
Yeah, I think the hat making process, it became a form of healing.
Mhm.
Like putting your hands to something, I think it takes your mind off the current and it puts you into a space where you're crafting something. And of course, I'm, 4 years into it, 5 years into it, and I'm still learning and growing in the trade. But that process was pretty wild. So uh, I met Brandon, made him a hat. Like I've always like, I love fashion, I love style. Always like wanted to be in that space, but never. I didn't go to school for it. I went to Bible college.
Mhm.
And I truly like this. I feel like my story is God will give you the desires of your heart,
Mm.
and it may not look like the path that you think. And so, became friends with Brandon, and it's kind of funny. Like, my wife jokes about it. She says we're the same person, but we both like style. And so, like,
Mhm.
he would hit me up randomly. It would be the most random, like, "Hey, what jeans you wearing?" Or,
Yeah.
and Jill would just laugh at that because it was but I knew that God had put him in my life for a reason, and I wanted to just steward it well. I didn't want to, take advantage of it. And so, yeah, just over the past 2 years, we just became friends.
Mhm.
And he's a dreamer, I'm a dreamer, and we would dream about things, but never in my wildest dreams would think that it would be something to this scale of what it is now. But um, yeah, so a year ago, April, so I was at Round Top and, Brandon hit me up and it was just kind of a random, like, thing, and he sent me a voice memo. It was just like, "Hey, man, like, I've been praying, and God just keeps bringing you to my mind, and I've always wanted to do my own brand, but I'm pretty busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and, he's like, "I don't know if you'd be open to it, but what if I came on as a partner in Saints?" And again, mind blown. I'm just like, Who am I?" Like
Yeah.
I'm nobody. Like he could do this with anybody, and but God saw it fit to put us together, and so that started another journey in this Saints Western narrative, and knowing my skill sets, I knew I'm not a business guy. I'm like, I need some help,
Mm.
and God had put some amazing people, Wade and Kimberly Lombard, into my life that are believers in Austin, and they honestly, like whenever I first started making hats, they invested. They bought a couple hats from me just to support me, and I reached out to him. I was like, "Man, I need some help." And so Wade and Kimberly came on board, and then we brought on one other guy. So there's four total partners in this now, and uh, yeah, we went through that journey with his management and just kind of like looking at the details of it, and God opened that door. And in April, it was kind of wild. I had this idea of like a mobile retail, and
Mhm.
so I was like, Airstreams are pretty Americana.
Mhm.
There was somebody at Round Top that had an Airstream, and so I was like, hey, like if you hear of an Airstream, like send them my way. I'm walking to my booth one day and I hear, "Hey, preacher." And I like turn around and this lady is sitting at a table and she's like, "I got an Airstream." And I'm like, "Where's it at?" And she's like, "It's down the road." It's like, "Can I look at it?" And so I go look at this Airstream. It's a 1976 31-foot land
So
yacht,
cool.
completely gutted out. And I'm like, "Well, how much you want for it?" And she's like, "Well, I got 6,000 on it, but make me an offer and throw in some hats." And I was like, $4,500 and two hats. And she's like, "Make it three." And I was like, "Okay." So I bought this Airstream, and so Brandon was like, "Bro, you got this Airstream." This was like in May or June, and he's like, my tour starts in September. Like, let's take it on tour, and we'll kind of evangelize Saints Western through that vehicle, through the Airstream,
Yeah.
and pop up at our venues. And so I'm like, so it was a sprint to
Yeah.
get everything done and renovated. But then we went out on tour with him this last fall, and we're about to jump back on with him next weekend in San Antonio, and we'll do like 12, 13 show dates with him, and set up Saints Western just to kind of help build
Yeah.
awareness of the brand.
Are you coming to
And so I don't know,
Charleston?
like God's like,
Are
do
you
what
doing the
now?
Charleston show?
Yeah, I'll be
That's
there.
amazing. So that's next
Two
month.
two show
Yeah.
dates. Yep.
So will
Yeah,
we.
we'll be in Charleston. And so again, looking back, now I'm on this side of it. Looking back, you just see this crazy, beautiful story that God has woven together to get us to this point, and the people, everything, and like through it, like I got my hair back, and so
Yeah.
um, most people are like, when I tell them my story, they're like, "But you have hair," and I always tell them it's attached to the hat, and they're like, "No," and I take it off, and I'm like, "I'm just kidding,"
Like the
but
Rastafarian braids.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, like 4 years ago, the first FDA drug was approved for alopecia, and my sister's a nurse practitioner, and so she's like, I had tried everything, like the steroid injections, creams, everything. I even got my whole head tattooed, because when I shaved my head, like you could see spots, where there was no hair. And so I literally got my whole head tattooed. It's called scalp micropigmentation. It's just, and they had to do my whole head, and that made me feel more comfortable to like not wear a hat. I always said I look like Uncle Fester, just slick bald. Uh, but I went to my dermatologist and I'm like, "Hey, like, my sister showed me this article, like, have you heard of this?" And she's like, "No, let me read it." Did the blood work. "You're a candidate, like, let's get you on it." And then my hair's just grown. And so God restored what was lost, but then gave us this beautiful gift of Saints Western, to tell his story
Yeah.
in a different way.
Saints Western actually impacted us before we even knew who you were. So I learned of Saints Western when um, I started a small group here in Charleston of women in social media and influencers. And one of our good friends in our group is going through stage 4 breast cancer. And we did a fundraiser for her. And so, speaking of community coming together and just seeing everybody come together and do this fundraiser for her, but one of the most sought after items in this silent auction was Saint Western boots with Brandon Lake.
And the sweatshirt.
And the sweat yeah, and I remember I remember it was, like, the night it was closing out, the silent auction was, we were still just, like, posting as much as we could, and we were like, "Let's get as many of these posts up as we can to drive these, bids," and I was, like, in CapCut making this random, social media clip to post on the social media we had made for it, and it was the boots, and
I know.
and then it got shared, and we were like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah, y'all shared it. He shared
I
it.
know, I was like, "This is so amazing seeing the body of Christ come together just for, like, her and just how it's impacted her life," and just the way I have to share this with you too, because the way you're saying about about how you saw God woven through, I've shared this story before, with your stories, like a beautiful tapestry, right? If you flip it over, it's usually just kind of black and white, and there's this one thread that goes through it, but when you flip it around, it's this beautiful picture, and it's like that beautiful picture of your story of, just how all of this was born and came together, and how you can sit here now and look back and reflect
Mm,
where God was at in, like, every little moment, but then you're sharing the story with
mhm.
everybody, and that's what's so cool. I'm, like,
Yeah.
trying not to cry over
I know.
this so
And
hard.
honestly,
I'm feeling so emotional, but
Derek, your story, and this is what's so crazy about it too, from our end, is like, when Amy started this podcast and asked somebody drastically different than her to come on it as me, we've just the whole time been like, bring us the stories, God. Like we sit down when we try to fabricate it, sometimes it's unnatural. Like, who could we find? And the fact that I just stumbled in your booth and immediately recognized you from the silent auction we did from Carrie, like, because again, one of our friends was like, she was very actively trying to win the boots. we, we were literally like, easy killer. I don't even think they were her size. But your logo was like embedded in my head, and I walked in and I didn't know anything about your story. I just recognized your brand, and my friends would make fun of me because every booth we would go to, first of all, I have to tell you, when we were in Round Top, everyone thought it was hilarious that we were from Charleston, because I think a lot of the people that go to Round Top live in Texas. And there's some outsiders, but they would be like, "Where are you from?" And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm from San Antonio. I'm from Houston." And they'd be like, "Where are y'all from?" We're like, "We're from Charleston." They're like, "That's so cute." Like, how did you get here? But I would love to go into booths and I'd be like, "Well, I was born in Texas," because this is true. I was born in Texas. I was born in Beaumont. And it would start, and my friends would be like, "Here she goes with that I was born in Texas conversation again." But when I walked in your booth and your whole family was like, or at least it felt like a family affair. I was sitting there talking to, I didn't even know anything about your story. I was just so excited that I knew your brand and I couldn't wait to tell them our story. Then I come over to your booth where you're branding hats, which I distracted you from. And then I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you have this whole story laid out that I just fell into. I mean, if that is just not a God thing, the fact that God keeps planting these seeds for you to be able to keep telling your story on podcasts and articles, it's just so beautiful that you're able to give this testimony over and over again, and that you're willing to take your time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful story of redemption, and you know, I think there's moments where we feel like that, well, this is it. Like, God can't do anything or resurrect anything. Like, God can do whatever he wants. I think he's just looking for people that are willing.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Brandon this pretty early on. Like, I can't thank him enough. Like, he's the real deal. I tell people, when they come into our booth and they find out that we're connected to him, I'm like, he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's amazing. His family's amazing. And he said something on a call, and he's like, honestly, like, Derek, you could do whatever you want. Like, this is your brand. Like, I love everything that you do. And I was like, well, man, thank you. I was like, but honestly, like, this is God's. Like, and I think if we hold it like that,
Mm-hmm.
we hold it open handedly, like, God will bless it. And it's the moments when we say, well, I did this, or it's mine. We close that fist. That's when I believe his favor will move. And so we're pretty explicit on, like, opening, holding it with open
Mhm.
hands. Like, God can give and he could take
Yeah.
away. But I think if we hold it like this, like, he could do whatever he wants to with it. So,
Yeah. Well, in a full circle moment too, a week after we met, I actually ran into Brandon at a rodeo that we have at Charleston. And my husband had come and sat down, and he grabbed my kids and, was like, "Hey, let's go." And Brandon was flying under the radar, but he had this giant vest on, and the back said Saints Western. So Carmichael, my husband, was taking my kids over just to say hey to him, and I was like, "I got a story for you." I was like, "I'm about to have your buddy on the podcast." So it was just a very cool, like, full circle
Yeah.
moment of just how we were able to bring you on and just get this story told. And I hope this story gets told over and over and
Yes,
over again.
I agree.
It is just,
well, thank
And
you.
also by you telling your story to some of these other people, you're inspiring them to tell their story, and it's just a ripple effect. It's going to continue and continue. And so I love what you said, open hands. That's what we do here at the podcast. I'm just like, they said yes, all the time. And I'm like, thank you so much.
That's another way, like, we're holding, because it's funny, like, none of us have been really in retail or really know what we're doing. So it's like, okay, God, like, you have to show up
Yeah,
because we don't know what we're
that's
doing.
us here with the podcast. I'm like, the fact that I know how to hook up a mic, I'm like,
I don't.
it's fun. So anything fun or exciting on the horizon? I mean, the
A giant
tour,
tour.
Yeah, I
anything
mean, we're
new?
we're about to jump back on tour.
And will Jill
We
and
got
the
some.
kids be joining you as well?
They'll come out to San Antonio because it's close to Austin, and
Yeah.
then we'll go out and just grind on the
Yeah.
road. And it's it's not lavish at all. Like, we're literally the last time me and my partner, Ryan, he's the other partner in it, like, we slept, like, 11 hours in 3 days because, like, it's just me and him in the truck carrying the Airstream, and we have a spot on the tour bus, but it's like, I'm not gonna leave him driving through the night by himself
Yeah.
and vice versa, and so we just, like it's, yeah, it's a grind, but it's a lot of fun, and, yeah, I'm just honored that we get that opportunity to do that, and, so we'll jump back on tour. We just got off a call. We got some things maybe, happening this summer with Brandon, and so, a lot of cool things. We're just, taking, one step at a time, and as doors open, we'll just kinda walk through them, and, yeah, it's a fun journey. That's people say, following Jesus, like, it's this strict kind of regimented kind of thing, but, like, if you open it up, like, it's a beautiful adventure, a wild
It's a
adventure, and
wild
I feel like
ride.
that's what we're living right
Yeah.
now, and, it's a wild adventure of, like, "Okay, what's next?" We have
Yeah.
no idea, but we're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, and, we have dreams to do, like, clothing and, so, like, our T-shirts, like, we do cut and sewn in LA, so it's like we wanna do a high-end, product. Our boots are very high-end, and so we're just like, let's do quality, excellent things and, yeah, just do the things that we love.
Gosh,
Yeah,
I'm
and
so
for
excited for you.
I was gonna say, and for local listeners, y'all are gonna be here for Brandon's tour, I think May 1st, and he sold that tour out, so he's added a second for May 2nd. And so if they have tickets, they'll be able to access your merch
Airstream,
and
look
your
for it.
Airstream. Are you gonna be actually inside? Because it's Circle Cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you gonna actually be there or inside?
We go wherever they tell us to go, so,
Got
typically, it's, like, just right outside the venue,
Yeah.
Okay.
we set up that Airstream, and so, yeah, we'll be set up there, have hats, boots.
Amazing. We'll be looking for you. And then we also have a question we always ask all of our guests that come on the podcast. So it's if you could sit with anyone underneath the oaks from your past, your present, your future, someone you admire, who would it be?
So, that's a good question. Of course, the obvious answer, I'm sure people say, Jesus, but,
Yeah.
other than that, I would probably say Paul. Um,
Ooh, yes.
Paul is someone that, you know, was in a low moment and God completely changed his life. So he
Mhm.
went from this guy persecuting Christians, like doing the worst of the worst. He was a murderer to having being like on mission.
Mhm.
And I think he's someone that understood grace from a deep level
Mhm.
because he would say I'm the worst of sinners, and but he had this humility and authority all in the same breath. We're a part of the local church because of his leadership. So he built something
Yeah.
um, that lasted, and he just didn't replicate followers. Like, he built leaders, and yeah, and I think the most like pressing is that under pressure, like, he was beaten, tortured, um,
Mhm.
all these things. Like, he remained faithful,
Mhm.
and so there would be a lot of questions for Paul of just like, what was your experience, your
Yeah.
transformation experience? Because, I mean, he went from, the worst of the worst to someone that wrote majority of the New Testament, planted churches, and I would like to pick his brain.
That's a beautiful answer. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit with us and share your story. And we're looking forward to seeing you at the concert.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll get you in a hat.
Hi, friend. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Hop into your podcast app, scroll to the ratings and reviews, and let me know what you think. Your 5 stars and kind words might be just what someone else needs to jump in and start their own journey under the oaks. Thanks for listening and supporting us.